Welcome to the Carnivore Cast, the podcast focused on the carnivore diet and lifestyle, with practical advice from successful carnivores, citizen scientists, and top researchers. I'm your host, Scott Myslinski, and I'm here to speak with experts and experienced carnivores to get answers to your biggest and meatiest questions while helping you live your best life as a carnivore. If you enjoy the show, please consider supporting the Carnivore Cast on Patreon. By becoming a patron, you'll help us reach more people and continue to create content on carnivore. There are also exclusive perks available, such as private Q&As, consultations with me, and more. Become a supporter at patreon.com/carnivorecast. Check the episode description for the link. Thank you, and I'll see you there. This episode is brought to you by LMNT Electrolytes. We know that salt, potassium, and magnesium are essential minerals, especially for those on carnivore, keto, and low-carb diets to relieve hunger, dizziness, cramps, headaches, and keep so many of your bodily processes running optimally, including sleep, brain and mental health, hormonal health, your heart, immunity, and more. LMNT electrolytes are convenient, evidence-based, and delicious. My wife and I have been using LMNT for years, every single day. They're great for fueling hard workouts, getting adapted and beating keto flu, fasting, traveling with them, and kickstarting your day with energy. They're used by Navy SEALs, Olympic weightlifters, jiu-jitsu athletes, and everyday people who want to make themselves better, like you and me. They're also founded by superhero Rob Wolf. LMNT is offering free, that's right, free people, LMNT sample packs to Carnivore Cast listeners. All you have to do is pay for shipping. Go to drinklmnt.com/carnivorecast to claim this awesome deal. That's drinklmnt.com/carnivorecast, one word, and I'll include a link in the show notes. Dan Smart at 3c.health on Instagram is a 38-year-old, 3.5-year carnivore/animal-based diet veteran with a passion for health, wellness, fitness, daily habit tracking, and creativity. He is a creative writer/editor and music producer/engineer by day, and he likes to apply similar creative approaches when it comes to making diet, fitness, and lifestyle manageable and fun. Dan has used a meat-based diet and fundamental approach to exercise to help restore weight, confidence, cognitive function, and healthy digestion. Finally, he's a certified health coach on Rivero.com and helps bring years of experience and passion for habit building to help clients improve their own diet and lifestyles. Welcome to the show, Dan.
Hey, Scott. Thanks for having me. Thanks so much.
Of course. Yeah. Really excited to dive into it. I feel like we have a ton in common, and also just your interest and your diverse knowledge and experience is super interesting. So I think it'll be great. Why don't we start with, your background and your story? How did you get here?
Yeah. Okay. So I took a bit of a circuitous path to get to this point. I grew up in a household where we ate pretty well, but very ad hoc style. Like there wasn't a lot of attention paid to it, but we did try to have, meat and vegetables and starch on the plate and whatnot, like for most meals of the week, fast food, like once a week, on a weekend kind of thing. So it was very nothing terribly outlandishly bad, but nothing with a specific focus on health and wellness and nutrition and whatnot either. It was just kind of I was born in 83, so I'm a 80s, 90s kid. So we had the I can't believe it's not butter and the
right.
all the fatty things of the day were definitely in full effect in the house. But for some reason, I in college, I guess, and then beyond college, I just got more and more into trying to dial things in and trying to make progressions, sort of nutritionally and fitness wise. I started going to the gym twice a week. I started swimming twice a week with a roommate of mine, and it just was little changes a little bit at a time. And this kind of led me to a place where I was doing a lot of things health wise that were, I guess, like the versions of things that you think would be good if you were just to kind of look at the cover of like a men's health magazine or something like that. Like I was doing gym, like just going through all the machines once in the gym kind of thing, and like jogging for 20 minutes kind of with no real like objectives kind of thing for exercise, and just being like, this is good. And I was trying to like up my fruits and vegetables and down and lower, like meat and fat and things like all these things that, like, looking back, I'm just like, man, I don't know. I was just following this zeitgeist advice sort of, and it just makes so little sense to me now looking back. But at the time, that was where I was at. And I was slowly becoming more and more, I don't know, I was quasi-vegetarian. I never really made it all the way there, but it was just like more and more meals were that way. And I was like, cool, instead of having lunch meat turkey, I'm going to have black beans instead. And, I was like getting very excited about all these things that I was changing. And luckily, around 2007, 2008 or so, I was like, trying to, I was incorporating Google into some of this health research finally. And fortuitously, I suppose, like I started to come across posts in just like looking up healthy recipes and ways of eating, and like what's the best like overnight oats I can make for breakfast kind of thing. Somehow I landed at Mark's Daily Apple. So that was like a big deal for me, because I like landed on this website, and it, like, I mean, some of the search terms just must have lined up, because I got on there and I was like, what's this guy all about? Like, this is crazy. Like, this paleo primal thing is like nothing I've ever thought before. Like, this is all crazily different. But like, the more I read about it and the more I started to try to digest it, I thought like, oh my gosh, like, this is it now. Like, this is what I'm going to do. So I kind of I made a huge left turn there. Yeah. And it was like night and day different for me. I was probably a pain to deal with. I did live with a girlfriend at the time, and I can I can still kind of remember the like look on her face when I was just like, okay, like, I'm never eating beans, I'm never eating grains. Like, these are things I'm going to jump into. And it was just like, oh my gosh. But like, somehow it wasn't just like a flash in the pan thing for me, and I did stick with it. So I got really like fascinated with that, and I was using Primal Blueprint, the recommended workout template that they had back in the day. I don't know if that's a trail you ever went down, but
yeah, I think so.
Yeah, but like Mark Sisson had, at least at the beginning, there was actually a separate ebook about like Primal Blueprint Fitness, and there were little like nothing super specific, but there were templates for like 2 strength training workouts a week and a sprint session a week. And so I did all that stuff. I started sprinting. I started doing, body weight workouts a couple times a week. Basically eliminated I was like a good student about it. I really kind of dove in and got in there and like did all the things, didn't really question anything. I don't know. I'm just that kind of person where it's like, flipping a switch for me. Like, fortunately and unfortunately, I'm super, super sticky with habits. So as soon as I decide like this is going to be the thing that I do, like I tend to like go in all the way. So I went in all the way, and I was doing all that stuff for several years actually. And then meanwhile, I had also this same girlfriend had sort of innocently brought home a few beach body workouts. We did P90X together, and that and that got me really used to this idea that like, oh, I could exercise for like an hour straight, 7 days a week. I don't know if your listeners are familiar with that program. I imagine a lot of people are, because that was kind of a big thing back in the day. Maybe it still is, but they're pretty intensive workouts, and it's sort of a boot camp thing. It's sort of like a 3-month, like 90-day, like every day there's a program kind of program. Um, and I kind of fell in love with that program, and I kind of like fell in love with the idea that like, oh, I should just be working out like a lot. So I was doing that, and then I was combining that with the primal workouts and kind of doing those on off days and adding all these things in. And I was doing the big ass salads for lunch, and then I was before long I was doing them for dinner too, because I'm sure you can see where this is going. I started to think like, if some of this is good, more of this is going to be better.
Yeah.
I'm going to be like the paleoist person who ever paleoed. And after a while, I like kind of I lost I lost my way. I kind of like went down this rabbit hole, and I kind of like mistook the path for the goal a little bit, and I got very obsessed with doing like hour-long workouts like each day, every day, and eating like as many raw vegetables with like a little bit of meat and some dressing as I could, and things started to kind of unravel for me a little bit, honestly, where I thought like there was a year or so where I thought this is the answer. This is working for me. I was feeling great. I should have said this earlier, but I didn't have like weight to lose per se. It was more just like I wanted to be stronger and fitter. I was always kind of a little bit on the skinny fat side, like definitely like a skinny kid, but with no real definition and that kind of stuff. So I kind of wanted to, I wanted to like have like a strength and tone and have like a real body and whatnot, and all those things that like are enticing to a younger male sometimes. So I was really just going too far, like full bore on all of these things. And I started to like understand after a while that like, oh, I think I have a problem here. I think I'm like, my health is suffering now. I'm like losing more health than I'm gaining with this. I started to have some really bad IBS issues coming up, and my energy was really bad. And I remember after a while, I could not keep warm. I had like hats, winter hats on, like in my house, and like whenever I was inside, and like, my hood up, and I dreaded going outside because I was just so cold all the time. And I was like, what's going on? And I had a pretty bad GI infection that, I can't say that it was directly caused by anything I was eating or doing, but I can't imagine that like the general stress I was under, didn't contribute to it. So I really like, let it be a cautionary tale, I guess, that there's like things that are great things. I want to be clear. I'm not disparaging paleo or primal or any of that stuff in any way. Like any ancestral health is like, and any of those flavors of ancestral health movements to me are awesome. And they're out there for the people who want to find them and use them. So I'm not saying that, the primal blueprint way failed me. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is that like, you have to use these, like, this is powerful medicine and it should be used responsibly. And I was definitely not using it responsibly. So yeah, I had some big downturns in my health after a few years. And I never was formally diagnosed, but I did talk to several people, and I had a few therapists that I talked to tell me that these were disordered eating, if not full-blown eating disorder behaviors, anorexia and bulimia type tendencies that, where I was just obsessed with my daily workouts and getting so many steps in and doing all these things like just religiously. And I was just missing the fact that like, meanwhile, my quality of life was actually going down. My relationships suffered. I ended up having a pretty painful breakup with the girlfriend that I mentioned who was with me through all of this, because I just like frankly, like I lost all sight of what was actually important about like my daily life and my relationships. And I was just like on this like foolhardy health quest where I was going to become the healthiest person doing all these healthy paleo things that, you know, regardless of the fact that like what I was doing clearly was working less and less and less well for me all the time. So about early in 2018, this would bring me to where I just didn't know what to do. I was in a rock and a hard place situation because I knew I didn't feel well. I knew I was having all these problems going on. I wasn't blind to these things. My relationship had ended. I was newly alone after being with this person for actually over 10 years. We were like high school sweethearts kind of thing. So it was like a big change in my life. And I thought like, well, I really do believe in these principles behind like this way of eating and this like an ancestral lifestyle. I really don't want to just say like, oh, it wasn't worth it. I'm going to go back to like standard American ways of eating and living. I wasn't prepared to do that. And like right around that time is when like Sean Baker started doing interviews. One of the things I mentioned to you when I was reaching out to you is that like I was a big fan of I think a friend of yours, Lawrence Neal, right? His podcast before its current iteration, when it was the Corporate Warrior podcast, and it was a lot more just like focused on like body, personal fitness approaches to high intensity training and philosophy and like life hacks and things like that. And I don't know, you probably came across this too if you were a fan of that podcast at the time. But I think one of the first, if not the first interview that Sean Baker ever did was with Lawrence.
Yeah, he was on there real early.
Yeah, it was maybe end of 2017, very beginning of 2018, somewhere in there. It was pretty early on, and like as far as this like modern wave of people doing like actually like doing press about it as opposed to just kind of like living their lives and sharing it on zeroing in on health or something. But he was one of the first like people going out of his way, it seemed like, to speak about it to people in that kind of way. And I heard those interviews. I think he did too on that podcast. And I definitely had the classic reaction of like 0 carbohydrates. Like that's, what I'm doing is already too intense. Like, how could this be the answer kind of thing? So, like a lot of people, I kind of put it aside but it was still kicking around in my mind. And by like April, May of that year or so, I was my curiosity was getting the better of me. And like on breaks from work, I would be going on to the site, also a bit of a throwback, but meatheals.com, when that was a thing. And there was just like, when they were posting just daily testimonials of just the end of many type thing where people,
it's a great site.
Yeah. Just story after story, I just kept reading. And there are people like healing and seemingly dealing with the issues that I was dealing with. And it seemed almost insane to me, where I thought like, so I'm going to do something even more restrictive in order to like let go of these things that have become too precious to me. Like, I'm not sure if that makes sense, but eventually I just like, I was so tired of like thinking about it and like feeling the way I was feeling. And I knew I needed to make some change. So yeah, in May, I just kind of dove in a similar way that I did when I first tried paleo dieting, where I just like had a grocery shopping day and I just was like, all right, I'm at least going to try this for like a weekend and like just see how it feels. If nothing else, it sure would be fun after eating salad twice a day, every day for the last like 5 years. Like, wouldn't it be great to buy, you know, a pound of ground beef and cook it up and just eat it, you know, as a meal, and not like I was eating red meat, maybe once a week. When I was doing paleo, I was eating a lot of just like tuna and sardines and stuff. Like, you know, I was eating like some protein, but probably not anywhere near like the amounts that like I should have been for my activity levels. And I would cook red meat like once a week, and I would literally like ration it over like 4 days. So I'd have like maybe quarter pound of it a day. And I would literally put some in a salad. Like everything I ate had to be in salad form. It was nuts. So I would, you know, like crumble this ground beef like onto like a bed of spinach or something. Like, you know, it was a real obsession in a real way. So I kind of was like, I need to get over this. And like, it actually was the perfect opportunity. I was like, this will be great. I'm just going to go to like the Aldi by me. I'm going to buy like a couple of, just, you know, pounds of ground. It wasn't fancy. I just was going to buy ground beef and some Irish butter. And I think I probably bought some like cheddar cheese too, and like some eggs and stuff. And I just was like, cool, I'm going to cook up this pound of ground beef, and I'm going to like crack some eggs over the top of it. And I'm going to shave some cheese over the top of that. It was like very, like very not well composed or well thought out, but I was just like, okay, just do animal foods. Just think about animal foods, and let's do that. And let's have like a big meal of that tonight instead of having salad. And I did that, for a weekend, and then I did it for a week. And then I did kind of like slip back and forth a little bit at the beginning, where like I still had some greens in my fridge, and I still had some mushrooms around, and I still had some avocados that I wanted to finish. So I was kind of chopping them up and putting them in these meat bowls and whatnot. But in general, it was way more like, I'm just going to focus on having animal fat and protein be the center of the meals. And then like once all that stuff was gone, I was pretty much, it was enough for me to just be on board. And I knew it might be like a little rough, but I thought I would just go for it. So yeah, so by summer of 2018, I was experimenting with carnivore, like pretty full on. And it was still like, this was still pretty early when it was not, you know, I think our timelines are really similar, because I think I've heard you mention this too before, where it's like, there was not a whole lot of resources. You couldn't just be like, oh, this is examples of what people are doing.
Yeah. Other than the zeroing in on health Facebook.
Yeah. I did join that group, and I was just lurking there forever, and I joined. And I also think Amber O'Hearn had also done like some podcast, because I was just like,
yeah.
I need to find some interviews, but like who's done, like I was just, you know, typing like carnivore and whatnot into like search bars and stuff. And she had, you know, she had been on a few keto podcasts, I think, at the time too.
Yeah,
so
that's where I first heard of it, when she was on Two Keto Dudes.
Yeah. So I just downloaded all those. I just like sucked up all that information and was like, okay, I'm going to try to do it the best I can. But still, it was very like not, you know, it was very not dialed in for me at the beginning. I was like, it really, it really sounded similar to my story. Anytime I've heard you talk about how just, you know, buying the like 3-pound logs of 70-30 or 72-28 or whatever it is, the very fatty ground beef, and just like cooking it and eating it with like all the fat and just doing like some things that, you know, if you had to do it now, you probably wouldn't do that, because maybe that's not the best for like digestion and the best way to feel good afterwards or something. So I did things like that. I made a lot of mistakes for sure, where I was eating so much meat at the beginning too. And I just had no concept of like ratios, or like what was good for my body, or like what was like sensible or reasonable compared to where I'd come from. This was like the Wild West to me. So I didn't have like any preferences dialed in yet. So I was eating ground beef. I was eating like pork shoulder steaks. I was getting rotisserie chickens. I was doing, like, and I'm not saying that, again, like similarly, like, let me say another, just caveat here is that I don't think those things are bad necessarily anyway either. Like, I don't think that that's an issue. I think if that's the way people find that they want to eat over the long run, that's great. But I'm just saying that for me, I had no, like, there was no rubric. There was no like template I was following. It was just like, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try that. If it's an animal or if it's coming from an animal, I'm going to eat it. I'm going to have sausage. I'm going to have, it was very like, it was good in a way because I was refeeding at the time, like big time, but it was also like probably very confusing for my body and not necessarily like what I would do if I had to do it again. If I could somehow go back in time and coach myself, I probably would be like, whoa, like slow your roll a little bit. Like, let's just try to think, let's try to stick to a few basics and then maybe like test things one at a time kind of thing. So it was definitely like a little bit, it was rough going for a while, I would say, where I just thought like, I don't know what I'm like this, like I'm teaching myself how to eat from square one all over again is what it felt like. But yeah, slowly but surely I kind of got my feet underneath me that way. And like lo and behold, like after a while, I started to feel like a lot of those symptoms were going away, or at least they're a lot easier to deal with. And I had more energy again, and I wasn't just kind of a miserable person all the time. Like my mood improved greatly. And I just felt calmer around food again. I think one of the problems that I had in just doing more of a like wide open, like, eat by paleo principles kind of diet is that there was almost too much to choose from. It was almost, well, not even almost, I think it was, it was like orthorexia for me, where I thought like there was all these things that I was like, oh, I can't eat that. I should eat this, or I should mix this with this. And I should have, I have greens, and like, do I have broccoli, cauliflower? Like I got to buy all these things at the store. Like I got to keep all the fresh vegetables stocked, like they're running out. Like a almond butter. Do I have almond butter? Do I have almonds on hand? Like, oh, I should eat these kind of nuts, but not those kind of nuts. Like there was so many little decisions, like you're not supposed to eat dairy, but maybe like fermented dairy, like Greek yogurt seems to be okay. I can eat that. There's so many times that I found myself in like a grocery store, just like just like staring at the food in front of me, like not making a decision about like what I was supposed to bring home. It was just decision fatigue to me. Trying to make all these healthy decisions was just making me crazier. And like the weird paradoxical thing to me about carnivore diets is that like, it seems more restrictive, but if you have the kind of mindset that I had coming into it, is so liberating actually to just be like, actually forget all of that. Like the only thing we're going to do is go into the store and buy meat we like and take that home, and cook it for the next couple of days and eat it. And I was just in love with that concept that I was free from having to like make all of these decisions and free from the minutia of it all. That I'm a minimalist at heart, like, and that's like a way that I live my life in a lot of ways. So when I discovered that I could eat that way also, I was like, game on. Like, I love this. I love that. Like, this is no longer a decision for me. This is no longer a battle between like, oh, I really like peanut butter, but I probably shouldn't buy peanut butter, but is it really any different than almond butter? Like, which is, once I finally was like, forget all of that. Like, that like none of that is actually like necessary for you. Like, let's just eat like the food that's going to do the work in our bodies that it needs to get done. And let's literally just like lay the rest of those burdens down. it made a huge difference for me, like psychologically. It just didn't seem like going grocery shopping wasn't fraught with peril anymore for me. It's like, I don't know, suddenly I just felt like it was so much easier to do all those things. So, yeah, that's how I got into it. And from there, it's just been like the name of the game has just been refining and learning and, growing and changing and tweaking and trying different things. So, yeah.
Thanks to Bioptimizers for sponsoring the show. And I'm really excited to tell you guys about an excellent deal they're offering this November. This is the biggest blowout deal they will be offering all year. So if there's a time to stock up, it is now. What they're offering is over $200 worth of free gifts and a huge discount all month long on their Magnesium Breakthrough products. Their Magnesium Breakthrough is a full spectrum magnesium supplement that includes 7 unique forms of magnesium for stress relief, better sleep, and mental health, all in one bottle. They're offering all sorts of awesome free gifts and products worth over $200 with select purchases. All month long, they're offering 10% off using my unique code. And you can only get this exclusive deal through my link, special for you listeners. You won't find it on Amazon or even the Bioptimizers website. Go to magnesiumbreakthrough.com/carnivore and use code carnivore to get your discount and free gifts today. Thanks so much and have a great day.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Definitely see a lot of parallels with my own story and own journey. And a lot of same kind of developments and mindsets. I think that piece around like trying to be the most paleo person and trying to optimize it and losing the forest for the trees and it actually taking away from quality of your life is something a lot of people can relate to, myself included. So thank you for sharing that. I want to ask a little bit about some of the experiments you've done because, it's always interesting. People have been doing this type of way of eating for multiple years, as you say, tinkering and refining. What are some of the things you've tried and what have you learned from it?
Yeah, I think having time, like the benefit of having a lot of time under your belt and moving beyond just to say, like, I'm going to do this for 30 days, I'm going to do this for 60 days kind of thing, is that once you gain some kind of stability, like then you just know that you feel free to kind of scoot the parameters around a little bit to change things up. So I would say that, like, yeah, for the first few months, like I didn't really do anything other than just like try to get my bearings. But like after that, I did, I still was chasing like feeling better. I still was like dealing with like some digestive problems and I was still trying to get some energy back and that kind of thing. And I was still trying to make peace with food and with the idea that, I was just eating. I wanted to eat to satisfaction, but not beyond that, but not under eat because I had been under eating for a long time. And that was something I wanted to make sure I wasn't doing. So to that end, I started to try to like narrow things down after a while. And I did, I decided to cut back on the dairy, first of all, because I thought like, well, this is the food that is like very easy for me to eat regardless of whether I'm hungry for it or not. I love cheese. I love yogurt. Like those are things that I just, it's weird. It's just not about whether I'm still hungry or not. It's just, those are things I could just eat all day. Like there's no off switch for them. So I know that's not like a unique experience or anything. So, yeah, one of the first things I did was tamp down on that. And then eventually I eliminated that altogether. For kind of a while, like I have brought it back in here and there in various forms. And right now I use butter for cooking. I like prefer cooking meat in it. I think it, I really like the taste of that. So I do like to grease pans with it and whatnot, but not much else, like unless it's like some very rare occasion where I'm having like raw cheese or something like that, and I know it's like a special circumstance. But so I definitely experienced when I did that it was very it was hard at first because, well, I think when we eat, we're used to getting some kind of like dopamine reward, some kind of response to the food that we're eating. And I do distinctly remember that for the first few weeks when I just said like, I'm getting rid of that. I'm gonna cook meat in a pan. I'm gonna have like, I was having sardines and canned salmon also at the time. So I was either eating meat or fish basically for every meal. And I think I was probably eating twice a day at the time. And I thought like, yeah, like I'm eating until I'm absolutely stuffed at these meals, but like there's no like emotional rush to me eating. And I feel like, it was very strange to me where I felt like, yeah, kind of like it's not that fun to eat when I eat this way. Like that's weird. Like that's interesting. But so yeah, it was for a few weeks. I think I was like missing I was missing this like dopamine reward that I was getting from even just from having dairy involved in my meals and like putting cheese on everything. And I thought like, oh wow, this is like a much more powerful substance than like most of us give it credit for. I think it really like it really like adds some like extra like emotional component to the meal that I'm eating for me, where like I don't know how it like hijacks my brain chemistry exactly. I mean, I've heard the things that people say going around about it being like a the casomorphins, like being like mimicking drugs in the brain kind of thing,
Yeah.
or whatever. I'm not saying that correctly at all, but
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah. So that was an experiment that I did like pretty early on that like I put in the toolkit pretty much and I stuck with. And that's something that I've gone back to it here and there just to see like, oh, what's it like if I eat Greek yogurt again, like with my meals, like what's it like if I have that? And every time I do it, I feel good for like, I have this rush for about a week and I feel like this is great. I love this. And then I just start to feel like not good again. Like I start to lose my like appetite signals and I start to feel really like bloated again and not and unwell at the end of every meal and foggy and tired afterwards. So I think like that's kind of dairy's impact on me. It doesn't seem to be a big deal as far as like skin conditions, things like that. Like I don't have like, fortunately I don't have like a history of eczema or anything. I did have like teenage acne, but as an adult, I've been like pretty clear about that. So it's really more of a where I just feel very foggy and tired after I have a lot of dairy for when I have a meal. So it's but for me that's unless it's like Thanksgiving Day and I got nothing to do and I'm going to go to sleep afterwards, that's still enough reason for me to say like, I got things to do after I eat lunch. I don't necessarily want to feel like I need to find a bed and take a nap or something like that. So that's something that like I've pulled out. Last year over the summer, I tried the high protein thing. I focused on protein and like protein for, I think the whole summer, probably going into like September of October. So for last year for 3 or 4 months. And I'm not talking like PSMF stuff, where I was eating just like no fat or any kind. But I did do like a very long period where I was just I was like, let's see if this works. Let's see like if I can like lean out even like how, like, if I'm still eating lots of protein and working out quite a bit, like, can I be like lean and shredded and like, what will that do? And for me, I'm not saying that this is going to be the case for everybody, but for me, like it really worked pretty well. And as far as I was, like I said, I wasn't doing like fat-free meals or anything, but I was just kind of, my basic rule of thumb was that like, I'm going to eat about like the equivalent of like, 90-10 ground beef. So I would have like sirloin, and I would have, 90-10, 93-7 beef. I was having some turkey, some ground turkey at the time too. And I was really loving it in a way, because I was maintaining like most of my muscle. I felt like very strong, but I was losing like every ounce of like, I swear my body fat must have been down to like 4% or something at the time. And after a while, I was just getting like very tired, and I was craving other food more after I did it for a couple months straight. I was like, this is a little bit much. So I kind of like went back to like a happy medium after that of, like, it's like, I'm going to go back to like sort of like 1-to-1 fat to protein ratio land, and kind of like live there, and maybe on either side of it here and there. But I'm glad I did the experiment, because it was like really cool to see like what would happen. And I actually like, I love eating big meals. And the other thing about high protein is that I found that like, this is yet another thing I think I've heard you mention before too, but if I'm eating at that ratio, if I'm eating like 1-to-2 fat to protein, like it's not a big deal for me to just eat like 3.5-4 pounds of meat a day. Maybe split up over 2 meals, maybe even all at once. And like, as somebody who like really enjoys eating larger meals, like that was really fun for me. But it was causing like some issues. I was like getting like, my like digestion was really bad, I think, after a while, because I was just trying to like force my body to process so much more protein than it wanted to. And like I said, I was just trying to make sure that I wasn't hungry, which is hard to do if you're a reasonably active person and you're eating on the leaner side like that. Like, so my takeaways from it were that it's like a very powerful and useful thing to do, but that, like other people in the space have been saying for a while now, that it's probably not the kind of thing you just want to, you don't want to just do that day after day and say like, I'm going to do this for 3 months. Short of having some very specific body composition goal. And even if that is something that you're pursuing, I would say that you should know that there's going to be consequences to that along the way.
Yeah.
So yeah, so dairy, high protein. I did at the beginning of this summer. I was feeling a little stuck and a little like I wanted a change of things, and I wanted to kind of tweak a lot of my habits and see where I was at. I'd been doing carnivore for 3 years, and I reached out to Rebecca Farmer, who I know has been on your show a couple of times. Great coach, super cool story for anybody who hasn't heard it. I definitely would recommend checking out her interviews with you and elsewhere. But so I worked with Rebecca for a few months over the summer as a client of hers, and she was kind of coaching me through like upping the fat and working on different meal timings and higher protein, because I had fallen into like the most convenient meal pattern for me that I always just fall into if I'm not consciously trying to control it is OMAD. Like, because like I said, like I prefer to like have feasts. I prefer bigger meals. So under her direction, I was trying to eat twice a day, spread it out more, and focus way more on eating higher fat, having butter, adding egg yolks, eating much higher fat cuts. Lamb shoulder is what I ate for like a lot of the summer, because there was just a convenient cut for me to get a hold of at a grocery store near me. And that was really interesting too, because I felt like I had some challenges adapting to eating higher fat, especially after not necessarily doing that for a while. Like usually, like I said, my cutoff would be around like a 1-to-1 ratio. But when I was doing this, I was probably, I don't know if I ever got to like 2-to-1 fat to protein. I don't know if I got quite that high, but I got close for a couple weeks. And yeah, like the mood benefits were great, and I did have like a lot more energy, and my digestion changed quite a bit. For a while it improved, and then for a while it was kind of going crazy. So I I think like I might have hit a wall with that. And that's, that's also not an uncommon thing for people. So it was another situation where I thought like after a while I'd had I was going to the bathroom like, a bit more frequently than I really wanted to. And I thought like I need to, you know, it's just as with the high protein experiment, I would like to keep like what I've learned from this in mind and keep the principles in mind and like I want to add this to my toolkit now, but I want to like again like find a happy medium of like settling back in like living around like a 1-to-1 fat to protein kind of land. And then but now I feel like really empowered to kind of like go up the scale, go down the scale. And I know what to expect in all those areas. So I think like having done that work is really important and really empowering, because although I'm just like, okay, that wasn't for me either, I don't think that's the point. I don't think a lot of these experiments that we do with ourselves, it's not about like finding this like new paradigm that you're going to live by. It's about knowing what happens when you do that, and knowing that like, okay, if the time comes that I need to shake things up, this is something I can try, or like I can add this, or I can pivot from this to this. I can mix these strategies together in a way that might suit me, which is really cool. Like it really is. It actually is. I don't know. I don't know if it sounds fun, but it is really fun for me. Like at this point where I think like, yeah, like having all this like available to me makes me think like, wow, there's so many ways where if you're feeling a little stuck or a little bored or whatever it is, like just knowing that there's different tweaks that you can do is also very freeing, and it's all within the confines of carnivore. Even in those like seemingly strict limitations, there's so many different ways you can eat, and it will affect like so many things about the way you feel, the meal, the timing, whether you're doing OMAD or 2MAD, whether you're doing high fat, high protein. Like these aren't just like things that are like preferences people have. These are things that like really impact like your body, your mood, your digestion, your emotional stability, like, so unfortunately they're things that are all different for everybody, and you have to like put the work in yourself and kind of, keep a journal, do some self-reporting, like confide in a friend, whatever you want to do. But there are like lots of benefits, I think, from just, being your own N of one and trying living in these different versions out in various ways for a couple of weeks at a time. So yeah.
I completely agree. I think you make an excellent point, very well said, about it being different for everyone, which is why you kind of have to go do it. That's what I tell people all the time when people are, asking me, should I eat high fat? Should I eat high protein? You have to experiment on yourself. And like you said, it can be really fun. You're basically conducting science on yourself, which is really cool. You can see the direct benefits and detriments when something doesn't work as well.
Right.
Can you talk about, Dan, what is your handle signify, the 3C.health? What does that mean?
Right. Yeah. So that is kind of a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek way of saying that I've it's my own like little spin on saying that there's people say there's pillars of health, pillars of success, or whatever, and those are my three. They're the 3 C's that I've used to get where I'm at, which is carnivory is the first C, calisthenics being the second C, that's my chosen way of working out and movement. And I think that's like almost equally responsible to diet, for as far as like being a part of my life and a part of like what I see as beneficial about this lifestyle. And the third C is common sense, without which I think the other two can go off the rails, as I'm like living proof of. I think that's really important to have, in addition to diet things that you're nailing down, and in addition to like a fitness regimen that you're very excited about, it's just insanely important that you take a common sense approach to all these things, and you say like, what is reasonable here, and what is working and not working. I also think that common sense for me covers, it's a way of saying that you're going to include sleep and recovery and light hygiene and self-education and self-care and all those things all under one umbrella of saying like, yeah, use some common sense. Like if you were in charge of a small child and they were, and you were guiding them through their life, like, would you make them do this? Would you have compassion for them in this instant? Would you, what would you suggest if it was somebody else? That's something I wish I'd learned earlier, but that's something that like now that I try to like apply to my framework a lot, is by saying like, does this make sense? Like if I was coaching somebody else, like, would I be forcing them to do another workout today? Or would I be forcing them to do a 24-hour fast when they just really didn't feel like it or whatever? Like, there's a time and a place for all these things. And it just makes it's only gonna benefit you if you pause, if you think before you make any of these decisions and say like, is this serving me well? Is this getting me, if not to like my primary goal, to some secondary higher order goal that I have that, I might need to make this sacrifice in the name of. And then, if we can do that, if we can pause and like react, not emotionally, but logically to the premises that we've set out before ourselves, I think we stand a much higher chance of success in that. So yeah, carnivory, I think, is a very important pillar for me. Calisthenics, that's mine. Anybody's health bag might be different, but that's what I like to tell people about. That's what I'm like as a fanboy of. That's like my favorite way to work out. And I think it's the easiest, and definitely most affordable thing to do in most circumstances. And yeah, just being cool, just having common sense and not getting swept away with like, oh, everybody's doing this, everybody's making protein bread now, everybody's taking MCT oil now, everybody, it's like, forget, just have common sense about it. Just put one foot in front of the other and do what's best, do the next right thing for you in that moment. So that's the way I'm trying every day to approach my own health journey. And that's the way I would try to inspire other people on theirs as well.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic philosophy, and you clearly have a very good head on your shoulders, Dan. And I really like the way you speak about a lot of these things and the way you approach them. This has been excellent, and I really appreciate you taking the time today, Dan. Where can folks find you? And I'll provide links in the show notes for everything.
Yeah, Scott, thank you so much. I know I said to you in person before, but I just want to say again that, like I said, in the Wild West days before carnivore was an easy thing to stick into Google and find tons of information about, your Carnivore Cast podcast was one of the first places that I found to have like just consistent, great information coming out of. And I remember just being so excited when I realized, oh, somebody somebody out there is actually literally devoting a podcast to this. This is going to be my new favorite podcast. So,
oh, thank you so much. That means a lot.
Yeah, I've been, like I said, since episode number 1, like I've been here. I love hearing from everybody, hearing from the experts, and just all the general success stories that people have been having. So thank you so much for like everything that you've added to the community.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Well, it's only because of guests like you that it's possible.
I'm so glad to be able to come on and talk to you about it. But yeah, my Instagram is 3C, like, the number 3 letter C .health. And that's the best place to reach me. If you go there, a link to my coaching profile at Rivero is there. You can interact with me there. I have not mastered any other forms of social media yet. I don't even know what TikTok is yet. So I need to do some branching out eventually. But for now, yeah, 3c.health on Instagram is my home base. And I'd be happy to interact with anybody there. Or if anybody wants to reach out, do a coaching session with me, you can find your way to me through there.
Awesome. That's great. Well, thanks again for your time, Dan. And thanks to everyone for listening as well.
Thanks.
If you enjoy the show, please consider supporting the Carnivore Cast on Patreon. By becoming a patron, you'll help us reach more people and continue to create content on carnivore. There are also exclusive perks available, such as private Q&As, consultations with me, and more. Become a supporter at patreon.com/carnivorecast. Check the episode description for the link. Thank you, and I'll see you there. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Carnivore Cast. If you enjoyed this episode, please review on iTunes. It really helps us out. And share it with a friend. What questions would you like answered, or who would you like to hear from in the carnivore research community? You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Carnivore Cast, or go to carnivorecast.com. You can also email me at info@carnivorecast.com. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep it carnivore.